call Even It Up. And what we do here as volunteer campaigners is to get people to petition for the corporate tax dodging bill. And this means to make big companies and wealthy individuals be accountable for the tax that they're avoiding and to make sure that they tax evenly.
Well, we became really aware that inequality is becoming an increasing problem in tackling poverty. Inequality is getting worse. We've got the statistic on the side of our bus here, and that's the kind of our inspiration for having hired this bus and brought it here to really engage with people and let them know what it's all about. That the 80 richest people in the world, few enough to fit on a double-decker bus, own the same wealth as the poorest half of humanity who live on this planet. So while that number is becoming more and more concentrated, wealth is becoming more and more concentrated in the hands of a few very, very wealthy people who have really more money than they could ever use, even if they used it for philanthropy and for good causes.
There's a tax dodging bill that is presently before Parliament, and we are putting pressure for them to bring that through Parliament because we think that's one of the kind of mechanisms that would make a difference. Cutting down on the tax loopholes and etc. Because we're seeing obviously companies and multinational companies, and I don't necessarily need to name them again. I think a lot of people have been in the news recently. A lot of people would know who they are. So they're the ones that we'll be looking to kind of tighten up on, to be paying their fair share of tax here and internationally, because what they're doing is they're maybe setting up in developing world in the poor countries, but then through channeling the funds that are actually made in that country through another office that is set up as a tax loophole in a second country, so that the money doesn't actually stay in those countries where it's most needed.
So what we want to do is try and create a situation where everybody has a fair chance in life, everybody has the opportunity to escape poverty. We think that's a basic human right, and the fact that kids born poor in a poor country are not going to get the chance to go to school, they're not going to get access to healthcare, they're not going to get the opportunity to work their way out of poverty, and they're likely to die years or even decades younger than rich kids from the same country. That's just not right. So we need to do something about that. We felt we needed to speak out, and when we saw this kind of growing inequality and we understood how it was impacting on our efforts to tackle poverty, and unless we do something about inequality and about tax specifically, we're seeing a situation where for every pound that poor country governments are getting in aid and in investment, they're losing £2 to tax dodging, debt repayments and illicit financial flows. So we're giving with one hand and we're seeing the money being taken away with the other. And until we tackle that problem with tax dodging, our aid is never going to achieve what we want it to achieve. And those countries will never be able to stand on their own 2 feet and provide for their own citizens, which is where we want them to be and they want to be.
I'm here in Belfast over the summer and just wanted to do something worthwhile. So I decided to volunteer through Oxfam. I found them online, and I'm a volunteer campaigner, so that means just going to all the events that are going on in Northern Ireland and asking people to sign a petition for our campaign to get a corporate tax dodging bill. We all play a part in this. We're all, especially in town, we're all buying into big companies and people and shops. So we want to let you know that all of us play a part in this. So the more we know about this, the more we can put pressure on different companies to be accountable for what they're doing.
Well, we know that 67 billion is lost annually, and that's 3 times the global aid budget. So if you were to think that if they were to clamp down on tax dodging with really good, rigorous, new internationally agreed tax laws, that 67 billion could be put to really dramatic use, particularly in the developing world where it's most needed. So so I think it's a really kind of simple way for people to kind of get their head around some of those kind of complex stats and bewildering figures, but it just kind of brings it home to people.
A lot of the public have been here today, and what they've seen from it is that the playing field isn't even. So we've got games such as Jenga, where you have to have one hand behind your back or you're blindfolded. It's not even from the start. So what we want to do is make it even for everybody, and I think that's what people have got here from today.
Challenge for Oxfam is, number one, getting enough people to be able to put pressure on world leaders, and starting with David Cameron, so that they'll actually listen to the people and take the action that's needed. The other kind of issue that needs to be tackled is it needs to be an international wide. It needs to be more than just one government who does this. So what we saw recently was a conference in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And while they did agree some tax measures, they were by no means robust enough or comprehensive enough to be able to really make a difference in the long term to the dramatic effect that we need to see. I think the more people we can get signing up to the campaign, the more kind of positive support that we can get, the more awareness that we can raise with people, they will become more naturally surprised, taken aback, more motivated to actually see their elected leaders take action globally, and how that will actually then impact positively for them at home if we do clamp down on things like tax dodging.